Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to another video on my Linux experiment, I would say. Um, let's see. There's a lot to talk about. Long story short, as you guys can see here, I've been using Linux Mint for a little while. You can see I've got it customized a little bit. I'm using a theme, added some transparency, added an additional panel up here to clean this up down here a little bit, move some things around. So you can see, I've been playing around a lot with stuff. I've got a couple of stuff installed down here, as you can see. So some really cool things have gone on, right? Let's see. How do I want to talk about this? Long story short, basically what happened, right, after I got OBS over here all set up, is I went through the welcome, right, the welcome screen here, and I went through everything, right? So I went through, I changed the desktop colors and everything, right? Added additional panels, cleaned things up, changed themes, that kind of stuff. I set up system snapshots, and actually this is one of the areas where I had a little bit of issue. And this issue only happened at the beginning. But basically the issue is that when I went into my snapshots, let me go and put in my password here. Oops. There we go. You can see I've got some snapshots here from 21.2 Victoria. I'm actually running 21.3 now. The upgrade was seamless, by the way. Absolutely seamless. Long story short, pretty much this Linux Mint experiment has been extremely smooth. Extremely smooth. I expected things to be a lot worse. I expected things to be a lot more difficult, a lot more tricky, but this is it's been super smooth. But anyway, when I was setting up the time shift, right? So if I go into settings here, the location I wanted to do it was on my secondary drive, right? This 4 terabyte Samsung SSD drive, this SDA1 drive. And the interesting thing was the snapshot tool, right, time shift, could see the drive. But when I opened up files, by the way, I've got Ventoy over here on the side. I'm actually downloading a whole bunch of distros now. I'm going to use Ventoy to try to do some distro hopping. But anyway, when I go into files here, it couldn't see the drive here in files. And I didn't see it mounted up here in the top left either. By default, Linux Mint takes any secondary drives and it mounts it for you, right? And shows it up here. As you can tell, I've got that resolved now. I turned off the setting as well, so that way I don't see that drive up there because I don't need to see it because it's over here. But that was just a little bit of weirdness. Timeshift could see it, but the file system couldn't see it. And then later on, after I did some other stuff, I ended up going through a reboot, right? And then suddenly files could see it, and suddenly I saw it mounted up here, and then I was able to go in there and do auto mounting and stuff like that. All that fun stuff. But yeah, so no problems there. What I did after that is I went through, you guys already saw me do the driver manager, and you saw that that was also absolutely seamless. I got the NVIDIA drivers installed, super easy peasy. I went through update manager, you guys saw that as well, also easy peasy. And I've been using update manager consistently since I've been using this for about a week now. I then went through the system settings, played around a lot, opened up the software manager. Pretty much everything I've got installed here, I got through software manager. Yeah, everything I've got installed, I got through Software Manager. Software Manager is very reliable for me. It's very nice. This is one of the cooler aspects. This is basically the same as the Microsoft Shop in Windows, only without all the crappy advertisements. It's super awesome. I love the Software Manager. I've been able to find everything I want to in here, right? Including something else that's really cool. So you guys aren't aware of this, right? But I use Apple Music. Currently, I'm subscribed to Apple Music. And I've been using that. And for those of you who don't know, the Apple Music official application in Windows is technically considered a preview. It's not complete yet. So you'd have to use iTunes for the official way to do things, but iTunes is garbage in Windows. And the Preview Apple Music app in Windows is also just complete trash. It's complete trash. It just does not work. So in here, I was like, well, I'm probably not going to find anything. I'm probably going to end up just using the browser. And I was kind of, whatever, I'm going to go ahead and search Apple anyway. And I saw that kind of stuff here. So I was like, well, this is a lot of stuff. Let me go and put Apple Music in here. And this Cider software popped up. Huh, Cider. Apparently it just, you know, Cider is for connecting with your Apple Music account. You can play music through there and all that fun stuff. And it turns out it just flat out works. Works amazingly well. It works better than iTunes. It works better than the official Apple Music app. Oh my gosh, Cider is amazing. Freaking love it. Freaking love it. If it would launch. Why aren't you launching? I was just running it a little while ago. Now it's being mean to me and not launching. How abnormal. That hasn't happened yet. Of course, things like that would happen while I'm recording. There it goes. It just took a little bit to load up. But yeah, you can see it remembers my credentials, logs me in. I can access all of my made for you playlists from Apple. I can access Listen Now. I can access my library, all my playlists, all that fun stuff. I can rate the songs. It's a better Apple Music player. It's so good. It's so good. That app is incredible. So yeah, long story short, software manager, absolutely amazing. I love the software manager. Love it, love it, love it. And I've installed quite a bit of stuff. Just as a quick rundown of some things I've installed. I haven't played with all of it yet, but some of the things I've installed, you can see down here a lot of them already. Cider. Firefox is just using the Linux Mint package. I have not changed it to Flatpak. That's fine. It's working great. This one right here, this is called Electron Mail. This is a unofficial email client for Proton Mail, which is pretty cool because Proton Mail doesn't have a desktop application for Linux yet. I think they're currently working on one for Windows, but even then, I don't think that's done yet. So right now, the official way to access Proton Mail is through their app on their mobile devices like iPhone, Android, or on Windows. Or, sorry, in your browser. You have to use your browser in order to access it. But this unofficial app is great. It's encrypted, so I have to enter a password in order to actually start using the email. Again, things are taking a little bit longer to launch than normal. It's a little strange. A little strange. There it goes. So I have to enter a password to go in. That decrypts the email service, and it remembers my Proton credentials, and it just drops them right into my Proton email, which is awesome. Love it. The next one here is called Trillium Notes. This I really want to play with a lot. This is a very powerful note-taking app by the looks of it, where everything is interlinked. You can even map things together. They have a sample set of notes here called the Trillium Demo, right, which kind of walks you through some of the functionality it can do, showing you how you can link to outside, you can link within, you can embed notes within notes, all that fun stuff. It's basically, this is a monstrous app with a pretty high learning curve, I think, if you want to try to leverage everything. Obviously, you can keep things really simple, right, and just add notes to it and organize notes like you would in something like OneNote, right? But this is a really cool looking tool that I want to look into some more. So I got that downloaded. I haven't really played a lot with it yet, but it's a really cool looking tool that I want to try to get into. So yeah. Up next, got Steam. Again, everything from Software Manager. This is the Flatpak version of Steam, and for the most part, it's been working great. That said, I do have a couple of issues with it. And I'll walk you through that a little bit once it actually logs me all the way in and brings me to my library of games. Okay. Sweet. Yeah, I know there's a cloud conflict. Don't worry about it, Steam. Don't worry about it. I know there's a cloud conflict. It's fine. So with Steam basically just works for the most part. Just works. It works exactly how you would expect it to. A couple of little quirks, though, I noticed. First is in settings, you do want to make sure that in compatibility, I found that enabling Steam Play for supported titles was already on, which was great, and that enabled most of my library to show up. Not everything showed up because not everything has been tested. It's not officially supported, right? So you can check this in order to essentially make the rest of your library show up, and it will try to run Proton to do it, right? And then you can tell it what Proton version to use. I'm using 8.0. I was using experimental, but I was having some issues with that, and I'll explain that in a second. So I'm currently using 8.4 as my compatibility for non-supported games, right? And the reason why I'm using 8.0 instead of experimental is particularly because as I was trying various games out with Proton, and for the most part they all work. But I did notice here with Crash Bandicoot 4 is the example where experimental just didn't work out. But when I went back and selected specifically version 8 of Proton, works great. Crash Bandicoot 4 works great. So right now I've got quite a few games installed. I haven't played them all yet, but everything I've tried so far just works. Works exactly how you would expect. And my entire library is available. I'm pretty sure 90+% of the games would work. This is just, it's been running great. The main issue I have with Steam, and it's really strange, and I'm not sure whether or not this is a Linux issue or a Steam issue. Probably a Steam issue. I might want to use the Linux Mint repository version of Steam instead of the Flatpak version of Steam, because I've heard or read that the Flatpak version of Steam is what causes this issue. But basically, here's the issue. Right? If I go into settings and I go into storage, right now it's just got my user, right? My main drive, and it has access to that. When I go to add a drive, I can find my SATA drive, right? And then I used to have a Steam Games folder here. I've since removed it because of this issue. But I can add a folder here for like Steam games, even just games. And then I can select that, and Steam sees it. Right? Steam sees it and it calls it external drive. Now when I go to install something, let me grab something, I don't know, Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures. If I go to install that, I can select the external drive. Steam sees it and everything. And most of the time, I don't know if it's going to work this time or not, most of the time what ends up happening is you get disk write error, right? So I was trying to figure that out. The interesting thing though, is that when I install games onto my main drive and not my secondary drive, I can go into those games, go into properties, go into installed files, and I can move the install folder to the external drive. And it's gotten write drive error a couple of times, but most of the time it does allow me to move the install files over. And then it still shows up in my library. So a little weird. It can't install to that directory directly, but it can move files to that directory. The other weird behavior, again involving the secondary drive, is when I close Steam and reload it, it can see it in settings. It can see the drive in settings in storage. But any games that I had installed on there don't show up in installed anymore. They don't show up in installed anymore. Really weird. Really strange. When I go into my file manager though, and I go in there and I take a look around, right, I can find the files. The files are there. They were moved successfully. But Steam just doesn't see the games. Really weird. Really strange behavior. So all the games I currently have installed right now, they're all just installed on my main drive. And I'm currently using my secondary drive is just video media storage, and where I'm working on other documents and stuff like that as well. So I'm just using it as more storage, which is basically what I primarily use it for anyway, but it's nice to be able to install games to it, especially games that don't need the fastest SSD, where just a regular SSD is more than sufficient, right? So that was a little weird. I've got Lutrus installed here, and Lutrus was surprisingly easy to set up as well. The reason why I installed Lutrus was because I enjoy playing StarCraft. And the way that I got this to work is I ran Lutrus, right? I hit plus up here, searched the Lutrus for installers, and I actually searched for BattleNet instead of StarCraft 2. And then what it did is it found BattleNet. I just told it to install. You can see it's there. I can run BattleNet, and it runs just like it runs Windows. It's great. It's awesome. So I can run BattleNet. And then once I'm running BattleNet, I can just install games like you would on Windows. So it gets me logged in. And boom, here's Battle.net, right? And I've got StarCraft installed on there. And the way that I installed it was just very straightforward. I literally just went to StarCraft and I installed it like you would in Windows. Sweet, fantastic. There is a little bit of issue I have with StarCraft, though. I've noticed that in the first, whenever I reboot the computer and then run StarCraft again, it needs to compile the shaders again, right? And if it compiles all the shaders before launching the game, that's great. The problem is that it doesn't compile the shaders until it encounters the necessary shader in game. So when I first load StarCraft 2, I need to run a unit preloader map in order to get everything on screen so that way the shaders can be compiled. Problem is there's not currently a preloader for co-op commanders. So if I want to play co-op, the first game or even two in co-op commanders is going to be a stuttery mess because every time a new shader is encountered, it has to stop, compile, and it freezes for a moment. And it freezes for a moment every few seconds as a new shader is encountered during the game. Really frustrating to play. But once the shaders are compiled, runs smooth as butter. Runs absolutely smooth as butter. So I do have an issue with this. It is pretty unfortunate. But, you know, the installation process and the process to get Lutrus up and running, stupid simple. Stupid simple. Absolutely amazing. Let's see. Other than that, I got OBS installed here, as you guys can see. Over here, I've got Shotcut installed. I did try Kdenlive as well. Kdenlive, I just didn't like the UI of very much, unfortunately. I do prefer the Shotcut UI. Previously, before going on to Linux, in Windows, I was using DaVinci Resolve. Technically, DaVinci Resolve says it supports Linux. It provides some installation instructions. When I tried to follow those instructions, I had some dependency issues. And I don't have the knowledge yet to resolve those dependency issues, so I just kind of was like, well, fine. I'll find a different piece of software then if DaVinci Resolve just wants to be kind of dumb. So I found Shotcut, and Shotcut works great. I have no complaints about Shotcut. It's wonderful. Absolutely fantastic software. Good job. So I've been using that for video editing. And then you got Discord. Again, all of this through the software manager. I haven't really had to run anything terminal pretty much ever. It's been great. It's been really easy for a noob such as myself to migrate over here and start using Linux. You know, there were a couple of other minor issues that I bumped into during setup, but it was mostly around theming. If I go back to the welcome screen, I don't know if I have it up anymore. I guess I don't. If I go here into themes and go here, right now I'm using the Faded Dream theme. I really liked this Orchidea theme. As I was looking at the various themes that are available for Linux Mint Cinnamon, I really liked this Orchidea theme. The problem I have with the Orchidea theme is there's an issue with that theme where the icons that I put up here, these little, I guess you can call this the tray, kind of like the Windows tray, where, you know, as you run software, icons get put up here. Like here's the Steam icon. When I used to have OBS have an icon up here, but I disabled it. If I run Discord, an icon goes up there, right? It's a lot like the Windows system tray. The problem I had, and it's still a little bit of a problem here in Faded Dream, but it's not as pronounced. Whenever I run a software and the icon goes up there, the icon is bigger than the system icons that are there by default with Linux Mint, right? So here's your typical sound, icon, Wi-Fi, removable drives, printers, Bluetooth, right? These are all system icons coming from Linux Mint itself, and I like the size of these icons. When I shrunk this panel down, everything obeyed the size, right? The super menu, the Linux Mint menu there, the Linux Mint icons, but the icons of the software, they don't properly obey the size. They're always a little bit too big. And in Orchidea, they're even bigger. So the difference is even more pronounced. It's actually rather obnoxious. So after learning about that, I decided, okay, well, I guess I should try a different theme. Found this Faded Dream theme. It also looks really good. I like it a lot. And the icons obey a little bit better. Still a little bit bigger than they should be, but unless you're looking for it, it doesn't really stand out, whereas it stood out more in So that was a little unfortunate, a little funny, though, at the same time. But yeah, again, I do want to call out though how easily customizable Linux Mint is, right? I can very quickly and easily add additional panels, put them on the sides, top, whatever. I can drag and drop things. I can go into panel edit mode. I can just drag things around into wherever I want it to go. It's super freaking cool. Super freaking cool. I love it. So I was able to create a panel down here, panel up here, have my main taskbar down here with all of the core software I use, system icons here, clock here with date time, and then the start menu, I'm going to call it, up here with all the stuff in it. Very cool. So long story short, like I said, again, the ride in Linux Mint overall has been very smooth with just little hiccups every now and again. So, and then like I said, I've been having a good time and I want to try out some other distros as well. So what I've done is I've got Ventoy already installed on my USB stick that I previously had the Linux Mint ISO on. And I'm currently downloading a bunch of different distributions. Fedora, KDE Neon, Tuxedo OS, Debian, Ubuntu, LMDE6, the Linux Mint Debian edition, and then just putting the current version of Linux Mint Cinnamon on there as well, right? And then I'm going to put all of those into Ventoy, and then that allows me to essentially experiment with these various distros without needing to install them bare metal. It's pretty sweet. I like that a lot. So I'm going to use that as a way to very quickly or briefly distro hop around just to kind of get a feel for how these other, I would say, popular OSs feel. And I know there's a bajillion distros out there. And I can easily add them into Ventoy and play around with them as well. But these are just the ones that I thought of off the top of my head that I'm just curious about. Want to experiment, see how they go. Now that said, I'm probably going to end up failing this challenge. The original goal of this challenge was to migrate completely away from Windows. And for the most part, I think I could get away with it. For the most part, I think I could actually get away from Windows. But there's a couple of key things holding me back. The first thing that's holding me back is not anything technology related. It's actually my wife. My wife likes to use my desktop from time to time to do some of her stuff, right? And she doesn't like to learn new tech, right? She likes to just use what she knows, and what she knows is Windows and Microsoft Office. So even though LibreOffice or OpenOffice are compatible with Microsoft Office, even though they essentially do the same thing, she doesn't want to relearn those. She just wants to use Microsoft Office. She already knows that. She just wants to use Windows. She already knows that. Even though I told her, look, I've got it set up to where it's basically the same, right? You've got a start menu. You've got your taskbar. You've got your internet browsers. I can install Chrome if she wants to use Chrome because that's what she's used to, right? No big deal. But again, she's like, yeah, but it's not Windows. I know Windows. I'd rather use Windows. And I don't want to. And, with her being unwilling to learn the new operating system and learn the alternative software, I don't want to force her to not be able to use my computer. I want her to be able to use my computer. She's my wife. I want her to be able to use my computer. So that's the number one thing that's probably going to make me go back to Windows is I want to be nice to my wife. I don't want to force her to do something she doesn't want to do, or heaven forbid, she just decides not to use my computer, right? I want her to be able to use it if she wants to use it. I love her. So that's the main reason. The second reason why I'm thinking of going back to Windows is primarily around software compatibility. Shotcut is an amazing video editor. I like it a lot. I'm probably still going to even use it, even when I go back to Windows. I'm going to say when because I'm probably going to do it over this weekend, actually. I might still use Shotcut instead of going back to DaVinci Resolve because Shotcut's actually really straightforward. DaVinci Resolve is more powerful, but it is cluttered and busy. It's easy to get lost in there, especially when you're a novice editor like I am. Shotcut, things just, I don't know, to me it feels like everything has its place in Shotcut, and that's a lot more straightforward and simple to use. Even though it might not be as feature rich, it has the features that I as a novice video editor need, right? But unfortunately, this StarCraft situation, even though the setup was really easy and even though it runs really well, I can't get over the fact that I can't just go in and play without needing to play like 3 or 4 games for all the shaders to recompile every time. That's just, it kills the game for me. I want to be able to just load up StarCraft, hop in co-op, play a game. Hop onto ladder, play a game. I don't want to have to go in, play several different kinds of games to preload in all the possible shaders that could occur before I can actually go and play the game. So that's very unfortunate. And StarCraft is one of those, it's one of those games that I love to death, and not being able to play it's kind of a deal breaker. And honestly, that's basically it. That's basically it. Those are the only real reasons to go back. Because everything else that I already used in Windows either has very viable alternatives, right? Like in Windows, I used to use Microsoft OneNote. This Trillium seems great. I was also experimenting with another note-taking software called Logsec, which is also open source. Can install it on Linux Mint just fine. It's in the software manager. I can find it. I can install it. I was experimenting with that as well at work. Most of the software I actually used. Where is it? Logsec. Yeah, see, it's right here. Yeah, most of the software I use is actually open source already. But yeah. So I'm not going to say that this is a complete failure. I actually feel like this experiment to use Linux has actually been a resounding success. Again, I expected it to be a lot more difficult. Back in college, I remember it. I remember feeling frustrated. I remember feeling annoyed at trying to get used to this and trying to use it. And there's been a couple of, I would say, minor annoyances here. Primarily me trying to learn how the file system works, because obviously the file system is different. The way that files are organized here is different, right? You've got your actual system, you've got your root, and then home, and then your user, and then you've got your stuff, right? Oh, another minor annoyance that I ran into is Linux Mint has these awesome default directories for downloads and documents and stuff, and they have really cool icons for them. But what you guys will notice is that for documents and pictures and videos, it's just a generic folder icon. And the reason for that is because I went into... Can I not do it here? Do I have to do it? Hold on. Maybe I have to do it here. Yeah. So what I did is I went into... I could have sworn I just do it... here we go. Bookmarks. Edit bookmarks. Here we go. So what I did is I went here and I redirected the location from its default location, right? And its default location is just in user, right? So it was on my NVMe drive, my main drive, instead of my secondary drive. And I wanted to use my secondary drive as more storage, right? For pictures, videos, documents, etc. So long story short, I moved the location of these bookmarks to my secondary drive. And it works great. These shortcuts work. Perfect. Works awesome. The little tiny thing is that the cool icons that Linux Mint put there, they went away. And as far as I can tell from Googling and things like that, there's not really a way to put them back, which is a little unfortunate. I was able to put little icons and stuff on the folders themselves, but I couldn't put the icons back here. So they're just generic folder icons. Little sad, little unfortunate, but it's all good. Anyway, I've been rambling on for about 30 minutes or so. I'm not sure if I have much else to say. I mean, overall, again, this experiment to try out Linux and see whether or not it is a viable alternative to Windows for a noob user like me, I feel like was a resounding success. I really have not had issues with using Linux Mint. Linux Mint has been extremely stable. I even went through a point upgrade, right? When I first installed, I installed Linux Mint 21.2, and just yesterday, or maybe the day before, Linux Mint 21.3 came out, and it just straight up appeared in my update manager, right? So it loaded up in here. It had a few additional updates for things like Firefox and stuff like that, so I ran those updates. And then I went in here to edit, and there was an option to upgrade to 21.3. Very straightforward. So I took a snapshot just in case something went wrong, ran that, and within 5 minutes or less, I was up to 21.3. It was super easy, super seamless, super awesome. Really straightforward. I have hardly any complaints about Linux Mint in general. It's been absolutely fantastic to work with, which is again why I want to kind of sort of distro hop and see whether or not these other OSs also are just as easy and simple to use. And some of them probably aren't, and that's fine, right? That's why there's different distros. There's easy to use distros like Linux Mint. There's harder to use distros, right? Or distros with more niche reasons for existing, that kind of thing. But I still want to try a few more out just to see how they feel, see how they work, because I enjoy experimenting, I enjoy tinkering. But as far as my main OS is concerned, I am probably going to have to go back to Windows, which I am a little sad about. I'm a little disappointed about. But overall, again, the main reason is I have a family. I want them to be able to use my computer. And if they don't want to learn Linux, they don't want to learn Linux, and I don't want to force them. So I'll put Windows back on. And maybe I'll dual boot. Maybe I'll dual boot. But either way, I need to put Windows back on so that way my family can use my computer. Simple as that. Yeah, maybe I'll dual boot. I don't know. I do like this experimenting, so I'm probably going to continue to experiment over time. I don't know if I'll make videos on this, but I just wanted to fill you guys in on the situation. I've been using Linux Mint now for about a week, and it's been, in a way, I would say it's been boring. But it's been boring in a good way, meaning everything just works. Oh, I want that software over there? Great, cool, package manager, or software manager. Just grab it, easy peasy. Oh, I want to install this update? Great, use update manager, install it. Oh, I want to play this game? Well, just install Steam, install the game, and if it's not directly supported in Linux, that's fine. Proton works great. These games just work. They just work. It's great. Oh, and it's not in Steam? Well, that's fine. I can install it through Lutrus, or I can use Hero Launcher or something like that. Or Heroic Launcher, I think is actually what it's called. It's been boring. Everything is so easy. Everything just works. I went into this expecting to have to become some super nerd who knows his way around the terminal and knows how to execute all these commands, and this is probably a little bit hyperbolic, but make my computer look like the Matrix, where I'm using terminal for everything instead of just a simple GUI, right? As the noob user I am. But everything just works. Everything's great. It's fantastic. You guys can see I didn't even put on a different wallpaper. I probably should have, but I didn't really care. I thought this wallpaper actually could look kind of nice. And it blends in nicely with the Faded Dream theme anyway. But yeah, anyway, I guess that's my updates. As always, I really do appreciate your guys' help, your guys' feedback. Your comments have been absolutely incredible, super helpful, so many resources. One user in particular, and I don't know if I want to say their name or not, but one user in particular has been extremely helpful in sending me resources, giving me encouragement, and all that fun stuff, and I really appreciate it. The Linux community is absolutely fantastic, super helpful for noobs and beginners. It's been super pleasant to work with. So I don't think this is the last I'll use Linux, but this may be one of the last videos I make of it, at least for the time being. I don't really have any current plans to make any additional ones because there's already so many videos out there on YouTube. If there's a how-to that you guys want to know, there's plenty of how-to YouTubers out there. Plenty of tutorials out there. I doubt there's any tutorials I can make that would even come close to some of the quality videos that are out there in order to help new users learn. The reason why I wanted to do these videos at all was because I felt like there was a lack of perspective of the new user, right? Like, people are aware of people migrating to Linux from Windows. People are aware of people migrating to Linux from Mac OS. And they're aware that, in general, many of the distributions should be more beginner user friendly, more noob friendly. And I think a lot of people who manage distributions, like the Linux Mint team, for example, they really take that to heart and they're doing the best that they can in order to do just that. And they're doing a phenomenal job. But I just wanted to give you guys the perspective of, hey, I'm a Windows user who likes to tinker with settings and configurations and stuff like that. Let's give this a try, see how it works, see if I have any major obstacles that I run into. And just frankly, I haven't. It's worked great. So yeah, anyway, that's my rambling done. As always, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.